restoring hope. Open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope.
And good day. Thank you for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. We appreciate you taking time out to listen in, or perhaps you watch on the taping of the show each Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. 10 a.m. Central Time, you can join us at webcast1live.com. The studio is webcast1. One is spelled out, live.com. We'd like to have you with us. And then you can listen to those archives anytime, Tamara Scott Live. If you go to YouTube, Tamara Scott Live YouTube. We, at this point, have some pretty good archives for you, whether it's David Barton's show when he joined us the day after the election and talked about, win, lose, or draw, where do we go from here, whether your candidate won or lost, what's the future for this country. And then he also brought in a little, on that particular show, and I bring it up for a reason, I had talked about administrative law. I had brought up this history of the danger of administrative law to you from the Imprimis, this great little newsletter that comes out from Hillsdale College, I think, each month. And that particular one is from September 2004. Philip Hamburger wrote it. And he's talking about how we've voluntarily given over to administrations and to bureaucracies through rules and regulations the ability to make law. Never was it supposed to be that way in America. And even after the Magna Carta, we saw this change. We took away the divine right of kings to be above the law and to change law at whim. And so I had talked about that, and I wasn't even sure why I brought it up. And then David Barton reminded us during his interview that 3,800 laws have been added. Listen to why I'm saying that, added, not passed through the Congress, through congressional measures or constitutional measures, but have been added through administrative changes, bureaucracies, rules, regulations, 3,800 laws since 2012. This is out of control, and we've got to get a grasp on it because these are unelected people. Your representatives, you can at least toss them out. If you get mad enough, it happens on occasion. We take out the incumbent, but there is no recourse for this. It's very hard to get bureaucrats out once they're in. If you want term limits, they would best be on bureaucrats, in my opinion, not the elected officials. You already have term limits. It's an election. Get involved. Get motivated and put people in office or take those out that aren't doing what is right. So I also need to come back just a little bit. Restoring Hope, we're so thankful to Mac for sharing his airtime with us. And Mac usually talks to you about restoring hope from the individual perspective, overcoming addictions and lifestyles that are dangerous and creating and having deliverance from those things. I usually come at it from the cultural or civil aspect of how do we make things better for us, for our lives, for our communities, by restoring hope in the system and restoring what is right, what is good about America. And so that's kind of the difference we have on this. And I need to thank our sponsors before I start into the show as well. Christians for America, Crave, ChristiansForAmerica.com. We thank them for coming alongside. Webcast One Studios, WebcastOneLive.com Studios. And if you ever want to get a hold of us, you can go to Truth for Our Time Facebook page, Truth for Our Time Facebook page, and you can find us there and give us comments as well. Joining me right now is someone who has been a champion of people. Her main purpose, I think I could say, is to glorify God. Coming from a history that is a large part of the fabric of this nation, Dr. Alveda King, niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., will be joining us just momentarily, but she's written a book called 10 Truths for You, Your Family, and Our Nation to Prosper. King Rules. I'm holding it up for those of you who are watching live on webcast1live.com. King Rules. And she is going to be joining us here in Iowa, January 19th, Martin Luther King Day. She'll be coming to Iowa, spending a couple days with us. We're going to have community meetings. We're having, she's going to open the session for the Senate and the House the following Tuesday, the 20th. And we're going to be setting up just relational meetings. We had this planned clear back August last year before Ferguson, Missouri ever took place. And we're so thankful. I feel like it's providential that she is coming to Iowa. We're building relationships. We're strengthening our community before any harm or hurt well, I guess maybe there's already some hurts in our community, but before we have the escalation that we see in other communities, and we don't want outside media sources coming here and stirring up trouble that isn't here. We're bringing her in, and we're very pleased that she's joining us. Dr. Alveda King, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Tamara. How are you?
I am fine. You amaze me because Ryan told me you were just getting off a plane.
I'm literally in flight. I just stepped off the plane. I do some of these interviews like this because I would miss some of them if I didn't try.
You have boundless energy, and you continually amaze me. If somebody calls on you for help or calls on you to come, you make it every possibility. You try and be there. So thank you so much for that heart of service.
Well, Tamara, I say I can leap tall buildings at a single and a half bound. I'm getting a little older, but I do enjoy it.
All right, so I've told the folks you're coming to Iowa January 19th, and if anybody out there wants more information on that, you can contact Concerned Women for America of Iowa. Get on that Facebook page or through the national organization cwfa.org. And Dr. Alveda King, your website and your contact?
Just alvedaking.com will work right now, or AfricanAmericanOutreach.com.
alvedaking.com will work right now, or African American Outreach?
Yes, .com. Can you hear me? Because I'm wondering, I'm on a cell phone.
I hear you great. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so you have been so busy lately in Ferguson, Missouri, quite a bit. Let's just touch on that. We don't have to give the whole program to that, but, take us kind of through where we're at, the issues and the solution.
Well, I don't know how many of your listeners are familiar with Charisma Magazine, headed up by Steve Strang, and they all set a good example down in Florida with the Sanford, Florida, with the Trayvon Martin situation, whereas they begin to immediately start praying as soon as that situation occurred. And it was actually, they were able to offset a lot of the violence and things through prayer. So I want to remind people of that. I also broadcast on American Family Association radio with the Urban Network there with Will and Nikki Addison. And we do a lot of talk on these as well. So I welcome this opportunity, Tamara, to come on the air with you. Now, what we've been discussing and what we've been saying in all of my work, and I'm going to try to give people a picture of what I do. You did mention my book, King Rules. I'm director of African American Outreach with Priests for Life, and that's a pro-life message. So broadcasting truth, nonviolent peaceful conflict, nonviolent peaceful conflict resolution through my uncle Martin Luther King Jr. and my dad, his brother Reverend A.D. King. So we went to Ferguson. When I say we, I'm giving a lot of websites and things now. I'm tying some things together. Restore the Dream 2015 is another African-American group, but not solely African-American, but putting all of this together with our good friend Dr. Albert Calloway from Iowa out there with you. Nonviolent peaceful resolution. So when you hear people say no justice, no peace, we're going to burn this building down and all of that, that is not peaceful. That is not godly. And so we go to Ferguson. We working with people in New York now, Staten Island, working with you, coming out to Iowa with this same message, that powerful message, if my people who are called by my name can humble themselves and pray. Tamara, there's just so much. And I'm naming all of these. They seem to be individual groups, Concerned Women of America and all that. But all of us together, coming together in that unity that Jesus Christ talked about, us becoming one voice. This is what we're doing.
Absolutely, and we're thankful that you are doing it. You mentioned American Family Radio, and of course, to those who are listening online, you can listen to portions of this show each Sunday evening, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, on an American Family Radio station near you. You can just go to their website, afa.net or afr.net, and you will find a list of radio stations near you. There are several in Iowa, and there's
radio too. Okay, I didn't know that. That's great.
Yep,
okay.
You will be airing 6:30 Sunday evening, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So, we are so thankful you're coming into Iowa to work with us. We continue to see these things kind of blown up in the media. What what is the media not telling? I mean, we only see one side of it in the mainstream media, and we see so little in the other, of the truth really coming out.
Well, the prayer meeting and the information rally we had in Iowa recently, where you and I met, the news media will not cover us speaking about constitutional issues, about the real intent of the law, about how to discern whether a candidate is God-centered or will vote on the floor of the House or the Senate according to God's wisdom. You see, they're not going to show us congregating by the hundreds and sometimes thousands to do that. The media would rather show you a small modicum of what's happening, somebody throwing firebombs or using profanity or people terrorized. Yes, that does exist, but there's a much broader energy or force that I call it, who knows how to be not overcome by evil, but to overcome evil with good, because we know that God is good, you see? And so the media is not going to tell you. For instance, in Ferguson, there were several prayer rallies. We have a good friend, Jonathan Tremaine Thomas, a very young prayer warrior. He and his wife, of course, a Christian couple, happen to be African American, but a praying couple could be any ethnic group with power. So I'm not trying to lock this into an ethnicity point. But God told Jonathan to open up a tent prayer meeting in Ferguson for 21 days. He did that. And as he began to pray, some of the protesters would come to the tent and receive Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Nobody showed that on the media. You did not see it.
So in other communities, we're so glad we're having you in to Iowa. We planned this way back before Ferguson ever took place, before any of the other videos came up. And, you and I'm sure, do not in any way condone police brutality. I don't think most police officers would condone police brutality.
No.
What can other communities do to head off such a situation before it ever begins?
What every community needs to discover, who is in charge of your local law enforcement? How is it being funded? Is it revenue driven? Are the police officers being told you have to write a certain amount of tickets? We need a certain amount of warrants issued or you're not going to get paid. That's going to change their concept or their idea about how to do safety and protection. The first order of the day for law enforcement is first to uphold the law and protect the people. But if they're beginning to think, I've got to write tickets today, we need some more arrest warrants, then they're going to be out looking for perhaps suspects for the wrong motive, not necessarily looking for someone who's absolutely guilty, but seeing them as an opportunity for them to get their paycheck at the end of the week. So we need to see what those structures are, talk to the governing officials and say, yes, we want to be protected. Yes, we want to be safe. But please teach your officers not to think about a person as just another traffic ticket or another arrest warrant, but to really know what the law is, uphold the law. And you know what, Tamara, I'm changing this just a little bit, but I'm not going off task. There's out there on the media some protesters were holding signs, and one of the signs said, a mother should not have to be concerned that her child will be shot when he goes to rob the store.
Seriously?
It really said that. I'm serious. It's out there. And so the point there is, ma'am, you need to be teaching your child not to rob a store. Not you should be concerned that he's going to get shot if he robs the store. If he robs the store, or she should not be in consideration. That child should have what we call home training. And if the child is trained, then he or she would not be in that wrong place at the wrong time. So I'm not upholding police brutality or anything like that. But some things, my parents used to say, you don't want to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Because even if your intention was not to do anything harmful, you may just be caught up in it. So we really do have to teach our children. We have to train them well. We have to not justify actions that will cause them harm, even if they're not bad or evil children. I don't really think there are many evil or bad children. I think there's not enough home training.
Someone said it to me this way: there are no illegitimate children, there are a lot of illegitimate parents.
That's right. It falls on the parents before it hits the children. It really does.
Now, I want to come back to what you said. First off, I just can't believe that quote. What city did that come out of? Do you know?
I don't even know what city, but just really Google that.
It shows you. It just shows you a whole mindset.
Tamara, I have it on my phone. Give me, because I kept the picture because I couldn't believe it. So I Googled it to make sure that it was true. And so here you have some protesters standing, and it says, no mother should have to fear for her son's life every time he robs a store. And the person standing next to him, an African-American is holding that sign. There's a Caucasian person standing next. Shame on you, Ferguson. Now, that to me was unbelievable.
I am speechless over that. The brazen. I don't know what to even begin. The mindset there. No mother should ever be okay with the idea of her child robbing a store.
Do you know what happened after I have adult children and grandchildren? And we were all at the house together, and the grandchildren wanted to come in and just drop their shoes and coats in the middle of the floor. After their mother read that, they were like, pick that coat up, hang that coat up, put those shoes up.
Right.
We don't want this happening to our children. So we must discipline and train them now. These are little 3-year-old kids. We have to train up a child in the way that he or she should go. And when that child matures, the child will not depart from it. Or if they try, they'll come right back. So we are not training, and this has nothing to do with ethnicity or race.
Nope.
You know, they're not being trained.
Right. Right. And I used to tell my kids and my friends, if you don't discipline kids, someone else will. Either we discipline them at home, or they will go into a detention center later.
Either the military will get them, or the prison system, or something. So we want to prepare them and train them respect of proper authority, obedience rather than rebellion. Those types of things have to be taught.
And so again, we're not in any way promoting any abuse from a parent, but there are those times when parents need to discipline, they need to scold, they need to set a child straight, and sometimes that punishment seems tough and rough. And you know what? If you're in public and you see a parent doing that in a loving, responsible manner, do not get in their way. Because so often we have parents who are afraid to discipline their kids in the middle of the discount store because somebody might follow them to their car and anonymously turn them in. So again, it comes back to you may have to embarrass your kids in public so that they're not tried in public as an adult.
Let me give you a few seconds on that. My uncle, Martin Luther King Jr., and you know my dad, Reverend A.D. King, his brother, they live in heaven now. They were civil rights warriors here. But my uncle wrote in the Ebony Advice column in the 1950s, and one of the things was about disciplining your children. So someone wrote in, Dr. King, I observed a situation where a child was misbehaving in public, and the mother was like, honey, don't do that. That's not nice. Now, what would your advice be in that? And he said, that's a strange way to discipline and raise a child. The parent has to have the authority, not the child. I'm paraphrasing, but you can find that Martin Luther King Ebony Advice column. And so in our family, and we talk about that in my book, King Rules, we advocated proper discipline, as you said, loving discipline, not abuse, not harming the children, not yelling obscenities at them and hitting them so they're going to be bruised or hurt. That's not discipline. That's not correct. But godly discipline. And my grandson was with me the other day, one of my older grandsons. I have grandsons who graduated from college. I've got little baby granddaughters and sons. And he said, you're kind of rough on these children, Grandma. Are you sure that that's the way you need to do that? I said, Dan, I gave him the scripture. And he says, well, I kind of remember when we were little and we'd come over, you would do that to us too. I said, are you still living and breathing, Daniel? Yes, ma'am.
And probably better off with more liberties than he would be otherwise. And so let me commend you as a grandma that you haven't turned into one of those. We were just with Governor Jindal this past week. We flew down to Governor Jindal's mansion in Louisiana. As you know, he's doing a response. We were talking about praying for our nation. I know. We would so love you to be part of it, but I know you have, I think, are you in the West Coast March for Life that day?
Yes, I am, and I wanted to be with you, but I will be on the West Coast March.
And so folks
And I'll
want
be
to join.
coming to you right before the one in D.C., so we're just doing as much as I can.
I know, and here's what I think. The whole week, Martin Luther King Day, the 19th through the 24th, that whole week, I think God has set aside. Something is going to happen in the heavenlies. I think there, between what we're doing in Iowa for us, the prayer response is happening the 24th, the prayer for life in the 22nd in D.C., the West Coast prayer on Saturday. I think Louisiana's Right to Life is having their march on the 24th, and they're going to march into the Pete Maravich Assembly Auditorium with their march as part of the response, a solemn call to assembly. And if you folks want more information on that, please go to Facebook and just type in the response, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The response, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. 10 a.m. is the official start time. There'll be some pre-game, if you will, worship time ahead of that. But 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tickets are available. There is no cost, but you do need to get tickets just so, I think there's only like 12,000 seating. And when Governor Perry did this in 2011, I think they had 50 or 60,000 people show up. Our nation needs to return to prayer. We have got to once again call on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is the country. This country was built on the covenant with that God. Our founding fathers and our forefathers understood that we would prosper and have protection when we called on his name, and that when we would not, it was one of the Websters that said, when we would not, how quickly catastrophe would overwhelm us.
And can I mention something else really quick?
Yeah.
Dr. Albert Calloway, as we said, founder of David Barton's The Founder's Bible. And he and I are doing American Black and White at some of these events. We're going to speak briefly about one race, the human race, Acts 17:26. And I just found out that publisher Steve Strang over at Charisma has a new MEV Bible. And you'll be hearing more from Charisma on that English, modern English version. I think you're going to hear more about the Bible and more from the Bible. There are going to be people promoting, advocating the Word in 2015. We're going to go out of 2014 into 2015, and you're going to hear more about God's Word. And that's how we're going to overcome evil, with the good news. I believe that, Tamara, and I know we're going to do that together, and you with Governor Jindal and that response. I'm just, God is, as you say, you're going to see a convergence. When peripherals collide, convergence is imminent. So we think we're all doing our own thing, but when all of these efforts touch each other, God is up to something, Tamara.
I believe it. I do. Just traveling the country as I get to do, I see pockets of revival. We read about the remnant in the Old Testament, and I think wherever there's a remnant, there's hope, and God will restore a nation. And I believe we're going to see some wonderful things happening. I was just recently in Poland and London, traveling the steps of John Paul II and Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, and how they basically stopped a Cold War before there was ever a shot fired. And it was their faith, Dr. King. It was what John Paul II was able to do in Poland. 2.5 million people standing with him, I think, for 76 consecutive hours to hear the truth, the honest truth, that they need not fear man, that their government is not their God, but their one true God could bring them salvation through Jesus Christ. It was an amazing message he gave. Well, I thank you for joining us. We are running out of time. Anything in closing you want to say to our audience out there as we have this holy season?
I would like to say Christmas, of course, is coming. Pray for me while I'm with Will and Mickey Addison, because we are going to be revealing some new truths this week as we're with the Urban Family Talk. Will and Mickey Addison, a young African-American couple, right on the edge of getting news out. I'm going to be with them for a couple of days. So pray for me while I'm in this little pocket, and we believe that some revival is going to explode here too. So thank you so much, and Merry Christmas if we don't talk before that, my friend.
Thank you very much, and I hope we get one of our little phone calls in between now and then. I love every time we get to have a quick conversation and some prayer. Dr. Alveda King has been my guest. She has challenged all of us. It is up to us to make a difference, and we need to be encouraged and never be complacent.